It's the difference between going in and lifting a dress off the rack, or you being a bride or a bridesmaid and having something bespokely made to fit your exact body. That's what we're aiming for you to get to, that place where you're able to look at a face and know exactly where to place that contour. So how do we get to the stage where you know exactly where that sweet spot is to put your contour? You will see many different face shapes, and you will see them broken down into long face, round face, all of these face shapes. And yes, you do have certain areas that you look at each face shape and work out where you need to contour and highlight. But that doesn't help you when you're working on those face shapes in multiple sizes. So the size of every single person's face will vary, and it'll be very difficult for you to know exactly based on a piece of paper where to place that. So I'm going to teach you to try and look at the face in a slightly different way. When you ask yourself, why do you contour? Yes, you want to do things like make cheekbones sharper and make things more slender and make profiles more contoured and sharp and defined. But you also want to turn around and build the face towards a more symmetrical shape. So think of it like this. If we aim to try and make the face look as oval as possible, why? Because oval face shapes will create a stronger line of symmetry in the center of the face. Those features on the face will appear more symmetrical the more oval your face shape is. So how do we do that with all of these different face shapes that sit in our chair? Sometimes even I find it difficult if someone said to me, what type of face shape have I? Because I look at their face and I see maybe more than one characteristic of an exact face shape. So the way I look at it is, if I look at every face and I try to imagine where is a paler, perfect oval resting on that face. So stay with me. If, for example, I was to draw an oval face shape on Kelsey here, I would start here, for example, and I would draw, and suddenly I come off the edges. Why would I come off the edges? Because here at the temple, she goes more narrow. So I don't have the ability to, see, if I draw here, it's more narrow and I've nowhere to draw the rest of my oval. So what do? Well, I need to make it fit. So to make it fit, I shrink the oval. So if I was to start my oval further down, say here, and I'm drawing, okay, my oval's still perfect, here, and we bring around like this. So let me do that one more time. If I was to start up here, doing my oval, I come off the sides, because I've nowhere here at the sides, the face goes more narrow at the temples. If, for example, here, I draw it and I complete my oval. So that tells me down to here is exactly where I need to bring that contour. Here at the jawline, because it came around like this, if I hold my hand just like here, you can see how the oval curve is working. So if I contour the jawline, I need to contour just this bit. The cheeks are slightly different. We want to try and make them look more sunken, but this is the way that we try to profile, creating that lighter oval face in the center of the person that we're working on. So let's do that. I'm going to start off with the forehead first. So what I like to do is I like to, especially with blondes, protect the hair. So I push the hairline back, but I don't lay my hand on the head. Generally, they will have their hair done, for example, especially if you're dealing with bridal parties. Also, this is one of the sweatiest parts of your entire body, and it's really unhygienic, I find, to rest. And second of all, you don't need to rest your hand there. But what I am going to do is I'm going to protect those baby hairs by pushing them back out of the way and creating a shield. So I start as close to that hairline as I can and blend down and onto the face. Don't start here and then push back. You're just going to find that you're going to get this build-up of product right in at the hairline, and that's the one place we don't want to build that heavy saturation of colour. So push it from there down onto the face. So think of your directions, hairline onto the forehead. Curve it round like this. Now notice the distance from the eyebrow to the hairline is really narrow, so you don't want to kill that completely. So just make sure it goes very tapered just at this part. Again, this is going to vary. Every face shape is different. What I need you to do is open your eyes to really take in all of your proportions. Brows to hairline, forehead, the middle section. Is it thicker here, or is it quite symmetrical in terms of the thickness the whole way around? Do the temples go narrow? Do they go wide? Those are the things that you need to really look at. Don't just start putting product. Don't just lift your contour and start putting in the key areas that you see all the time. Understand how to manipulate. So let's contour. If you look at Kelsey's forehead, she has a very petite forehead, so I have to be really careful not to put too much on. Just down to that area, that's enough. Here at the jawline, remember it's just this back section. And again, when it comes to jawlines, I find that the paler the person's skin, the less I can get away with contour, especially at jawlines, because if they move their face, it's fine if you're looking directly straight in ahead, but if you start twisting, turning your face, it can be really problematic and really obvious what you're doing. So again, I like to kind of watch and see where I'm putting that contour, because really what you're doing is taking that shadow that's naturally cast on the jawline and you're just manipulating the shape of it to create more of that oval shape that we want to create as a lighter center to the whole face shape. Again, temples. For some people, you can bring it onto the temples, especially if it's a little bit wider. Then you have to make that decision, depending on the style of the eye makeup, how much you want to add onto the side. Kelsey, for example, is really quite narrow, and if I put contour here, what contour does, it pushes something in. So if I push this in, what could happen is the jawline will look like it's further out and expanding. So kind of think like air in a balloon. You push the balloon at the top, the air goes to the bottom and makes it look bigger. That's exactly what this type of contour is going to do if I put it already on somewhere that's already narrow and somewhere that we're actually trying to build out to complete more of an oval face shape. Okay, next up, we're going to work into the cheekbone area. Now, a lot of times you see the contour going quite high on the cheekbone. You have to take a couple of things into consideration. There is no right or wrong. There's just things that you need to consider. For me, I personally love whenever there is a little bit of a separation between the eyes to the cheeks, to the lips, to the jawlines. I feel like there's a way that you should really try to space out a face shape. So when it's too high, I really sometimes feel that it sometimes pushes the eyes and cheeks too far together. It's fine a lot of the times whenever the person is completely relaxed, but smile for me a second, Kelsey, really smile. And here, can you see how much further the cheekbone travels up? You have to take those things into consideration as well. When the person has expression, a lot of times when you watch tutorials, they're doing things like bringing the contours really high, sometimes even the blusher, but they never allow for what that's going to look like whenever there's expression and other things happening on the face. So those are things that you have to take into consideration. Personally, I like it whenever it's more contoured underneath. I love this idea of taking and lifting the face, almost like scaffolding, lift up and make everything. Why would I want to bring anything down as well? So a lot of times I see the line almost coming down towards the ground. Nobody ever wants anything to go down. They want it to look higher and lifted. And that's what I try to do whenever I sculpt a face. But again, if you have a way that's already working for you in terms of your sculpt, that's fine. But do try different techniques. Don't get stuck to the one way of doing something. You know, there are other times, especially if I'm doing something a little bit more dramatic or I'm doing something more creative, I'll work with really strange contours because there's so many different ways that we can have fun and manipulate the face. But somewhere you have to decide what you think is the ideal, perfect look and sculpt. So for me, I kind of look at those really beautiful supermodel high cheekbones, and that's what I try to bring into my client makeups, and that's what I try to manipulate people to look like. So I have this aesthetic as what I think is really beautiful to me, and that's where I manipulate a face shape. You have to find that benchmark of what you think is real, true beauty. So I'm going to continue with my contour. I'm going to put a little bit on the nose area. Again, not a huge fan of too much nose contour, especially if the person doesn't need it. It's more just to go with the overall kind of feel and vibe of the look that I'm even putting any here. But Kelsey's nose is really nice. I don't feel it particularly broad or anything, so I don't feel I need to do very much. I'm actually going to put the tiniest little bit here as well, underneath her lip, just because she has this really nice ridge to her bottom lip, and it's actually perfect example of how to create even slightly fuller lips by pushing this in, because she has this little indentation here, which is lovely. So I'm just making use of it. But again, it's not going to work in every lip shape. This is what you have to get into your head, really looking at those curves, those bends, those shapes that every single person has that's completely unique. Analysing your face is so important before you just throw makeup products onto it.